looks at me. He just looks at me. Like,
fellow Rotarian, that's great.
Go ahead, she's great.
So all of us are, I was lucky to get to. And it's fast.
Here's the deal. Forget about these guys.
Good afternoon, everyone. It is an absolutely gorgeous day. I'm so glad you're all here. Could we stand for O Canada, followed by Rotary Grace? It gives me great pleasure today to introduce our guests. Steve will introduce our guest speaker today a little more formally, but today we have with us the Honourable Coralee Oakes, Minister of Community, Sport and Cultural Development. Our guests, if I could ask you to stand, please, until I finish introducing everyone, so we can give you a very warm Rotary welcome. Joan Wallace, lovely to see you again, guest of Steve. Thank you for coming. Cameron L. Cameron, thank you. And Angela Oakstone, also guest of Steve. Thank you very much for coming. We also have with us today a visiting Rotarian from the Coquitlam Club, a Paul Harris Fellow. I'm very pleased to introduce Linda Reamer, who is the MLA for Port Moody Coquitlam. If I may ask you to stand, Linda, please. Thank you very much for joining us today. Thank you, Mickey. It is the official start of the Rotary Clubs of Victoria Car Raffle. And there are people out there selling tickets right now. In fact, the second shift has just started. I'd like to now ask Steve Wallace, our director of the program, to come forward and introduce our guest speaker for today.
More importantly, is she's from Quesnel, and she learned to drive at a very famous driving school. You didn't know this, but she used to be Miss Quesnel as well. 18 years of age, she runs for the Reform nomination federally and misses it by a couple of inches. So you have a dynamic woman speaking today on behalf of the government, a friend, a colleague, a former city councillor in the city of Quesnel. She'll answer any questions afterwards, and I am very pleased to have her here today. And as a guarantee that I will behave, my wife is also attending. Coralee Oakes.
And Steve called me and he goes, talk about a little bit about what a day in the life that you lead, and every single day is so incredibly different and unique. But maybe what I'll start with, and it's a little bit of a thank you to Steve. I think in every single one of our jobs, and I can say that to every single person in this room, there's people in our lives that coach us, that really make a difference, that make an impact in the day-to-day lives, and actually allow us to be an 18-year-old that believes that they can honestly go out and change the world. And for many of you sitting in the room, and I have the great delight to meet many of you, it is about each of you every single day as a Rotarian on how you can absolutely change the world, change your communities, get involved. And so thank you very much for all of the work that you do on a day-to-day basis. So I studied political science at UBC, but I also studied performing arts. And my parents said, what are you ever going to do with a degree in performing arts and a degree in political science? My mom was an accountant and, ran a small business. She goes, why don't you learn something useful? And, after 20 years, I actually got a job, probably only one job in British Columbia, where you can combine a performing arts diploma with a degree in political science. I arrived. We want to make sure that young people have the opportunity to learn about the sacrifices that we've made, but also to come down here, learn about our democratic process, but also to have a contribution that when they went out to their communities, because it was leading up to the local government election, that they go and get involved and get people out to vote. This week was another one of those important things that I very much value. We have a couple in Quesnel, Paul and Terry Nichols. An outstanding ranching family. Previous that, I worked with the Chamber of Commerce for 14 years, and I met Paul and Terry because they had a bed and barn. So it's a bed and breakfast, but you can, if you have horses, you could stay over, and they've won Tourism Excellence Awards, and they're just a dynamic couple. Paul had served in the Patricia Pats and his experience in the former Yugoslavia. Paul and Terry are doing an 11,000-kilometer journey across Canada by horseback, And they left from the ledge on Monday, and it was a truly remarkable day. Today we have the women's rugby sevens that are happening. What a great sport. This is the first time a tournament like this is going to be held in Canada. And I think I am so excited about that, and I want people to understand the tremendous potential for sport tourism, for hosting events like this in British Columbia. I think we are going to be internationally renowned as a hosting nation, as a hosting province, and I'm committed in the work that I do to make sure that happens. We know it brings significant economic generation into our communities. It's a way of exciting volunteers. It's a way of getting young people connected and active and enthusiastic about sport. Yes?
I have a personal request of you, and that is that it's not very often that we have two famous people from Quesnel at the same time. I'd like to hear their best personal story about Steve Wallace and suitable for the audience.
Long answer, and I'm a politician, so in question period, the longer you talk means the less questions that you get. We'll continue on with our meeting here today, and we get to do two of our favorite things. One is to give out a Paul Harris, and the other is to induct a new member.
Today, we're going to offer, or present, I should say, I better not slip, it's Steve Wallace today, who's receiving his Paul Harris +2. So I'd like Steve to come forward and receive his Paul Harris +2. In our club, 100+ members, how many Paul Harrises do you believe we have? 57. Okay? It would be a nice goal to have a hunt giving for our club. $420,923. $420,923.
President Ellie and fellow Rotarians and really smart guests. I'd like to introduce, it's my pleasure to introduce our newest members of the club. Some of you will immediately hear the name and say, what's that? It's Lithuanian. She grew up in Toronto and where there's many ethnic communities, and she actually married into the community, so both her first and last names are Lithuanian. She went to Italy for a year. She's now back in Victoria, working with the Dogwood Law Court.
So the Interact Club of Esquimalt High School is holding its World Cafe event on Wednesday, April 22nd from 6 until 7:30. So that's next Wednesday.
On May 5th, 1945, largely in part due to the Canadian Army, the Netherlands was liberated from Nazi occupation. On behalf of the Netherlands Consul General, World War II vets are invited to a celebration of Netherlands liberation at Government House.
Last weekend was the Vancouver Island Regional Science Fair, which was held at UVic, and as probably a lot of you know, we've been sponsors of this event for a number. We had 4 teams of judges there, excellent judges, and they were Norma Friedman, Gillian Kerrigan, Creole Carmichael, Murray Ramsbottom, James Ramsbottom, Stuart Adam, Gus Jardin, Don Jensen, and myself. So we had $100 prize for each of the 4 categories. A $300 prize, which we are calling the Mickey Hyash Memorial Prize. Mickey's award is going to be given to, went to a grade 12 student, I believe it was, Nathan Cooney, who developed a self-diagnostic kit for patients with a particular type of genetic disease. The association which sponsors this event is very grateful for the support of Rotary.
Quick update as to our TC10K Rotary Club team. At this point we have 16 participants representing the club.
It's going to go up in the ramp in front of the Coho, so you have huge visibility during the marathon and a table there and tickets to be sold there. So that's one other selling spot, tremendous visibility.
I'll ask you to stand for the Queen.